The young Apache rejected 100 warriors, but when she saw the cattle rancher, she whispered, "You're mine." Her name was known throughout the settlements, not just for her beauty, but for the strength of her spirit and her sharp mind. From a young age, she had shown a courage that was rare, even among her people. She would run through the fields barefoot, climb the rocky hills, and ride alongside the warriors of the tribe during hunting trips. While others admired her energy and skill, she never sought attention or praise. She moved through life with quiet confidence, fully aware of her own abilities and her own heart. As she grew older, suitors began to approach her, hoping to win her hand in marriage. One by one, they came, strong warriors, brave hunters, and respected young men from nearby tribes. Each of them had a reputation, stories of victories in hunting or in battle, and families who were proud of their accomplishments. Yet she rejected them all. Some tried to charm her with gifts, others with their bravery, and a few even tried to show off their skill in front of the entire village. But she looked at each one carefully, listened to their words, and then quietly said no. She refused them not out of cruelty, but because she understood her own heart. She valued her freedom and her independence, and she knew that true love could not be forced. Her family watched her choices with mixed emotions. Her mother admired her courage and the way she refused to follow tradition blindly. She knew her daughter's heart was pure, and that she would not settle for anything less than a life she wanted for herself. Her father, on the other hand, sometimes worried. He wanted her to be happy and secure, and he knew that marriage was an important part of life in their community. Yet, even he could not argue with the strength of her will. She had a quiet power that could not be denied. The villagers, however, were often puzzled by her refusals. They whispered among themselves about why a young woman would turn away so many worthy men. Some wondered if she was too proud, while others believed she simply had not yet found the right person. The young woman did not listen to the gossip. She moved through the village with a calm grace, helping where she could and participating in daily life, yet always keeping her heart reserved for something she could not yet name. She knew she was different from many of the women in her tribe, not because she was better, but because she had a strong sense of self. Her daily life was busy and full of responsibilities. From the first light of dawn, she helped gather water from the river, tended to small animals, and assisted her elders in preparing food. She learned the ways of the land from her parents and older relatives, understanding which plants were safe to eat, how to track animals in the forest, and how to move silently across the rocky terrain. Hunting trips with the warriors taught her patience and strategy, and she quickly became skilled in archery and horseback riding. Every skill she learned, she mastered with care, not to show off, but because she loved to understand the world around her. Despite her busy days, she often found quiet moments to sit alone on a hilltop or under the shade of a large tree. These were the moments when she would think about her future, her desires, and her place in the world. She dreamed of adventure, of seeing lands beyond her tribe, and of meeting someone who could understand her spirit. Not just a warrior who would boast about strength, but someone who could match her in kindness, intelligence, and courage. These thoughts filled her heart with hope, even as she turned away countless suitors who could not meet her expectations. The young woman's reputation grew far beyond her village. Stories of her independence spread to neighboring tribes, and soon she became known as someone who could not be easily swayed. This reputation brought both admiration and challenge. Warriors would travel long distances, hoping to prove themselves worthy of her attention. They would perform daring feats, show their skill in hunting or battle, and try to impress her with stories of their bravery. Yet she remained calm, assessing each one with careful eyes. She knew that no amount of display could win her heart if the man did not understand her true values. Over time, her refusals became almost legendary. It was said that over 100 warriors had approached her, and every single one had been politely turned away. Some left disappointed, feeling rejected, but most left with a sense of respect for her honesty and strength. They realized that she was not rejecting them out of spite or pride, but because she sought something deeper. She believed that love could not be rushed, forced, or bought. It had to be earned through understanding, respect, and shared values. Her friends in the village often tried to encourage her to accept a suitor, worried that she might spend her life alone. Yet she would smile and shake her head, telling them that she was not afraid of waiting. "When the right person comes," she would say, "I will know. Until then, I must honor who I am." Her words carried wisdom beyond her years, and even the elders of the tribe nodded in agreement, understanding the depth of her heart. Life continued in its rhythm, with hunting, tending to the land, and participating in ceremonies that celebrated the tribe's traditions. She watched the changing seasons with awe, the blooming of spring flowers, the long, hot summers, the crisp autumn air, and the quiet winters. Each season brought new challenges, new lessons, and new stories. And through it all, she grew stronger, wiser, and more confident in her choices. Despite her independence, there was a quiet longing in her heart. She wanted to meet someone who could share her life in a way that honored both their spirits. She did not know when or where this person would come, but she believed that such a meeting was possible. This hope gave her courage and joy, even as she continued to reject suitors who did not meet her standards. It was not about finding someone quickly. It was about finding someone truly right. And so, the young Apache woman moved through her days with determination and grace. She became a symbol of strength and independence, not just for her tribe, but for all who heard her story. Her courage inspired others to be true to themselves, to honor their hearts, and to never settle for less than what they deserved. She was a living reminder that strength was not only measured by skill in battle or hunting, but by the power to follow one's own path, to speak one's own truth, and to wait patiently for what truly belonged to one's heart. The sun set over the horizon, casting long shadows over the hills and valleys. The young woman stood on a hill, looking out at the land she loved so much. She felt a quiet peace, knowing that her heart was free and that she would continue to live according to her own rules. She did not know what the future held, but she felt ready for whatever adventure it might bring. And in that moment, surrounded by the beauty of her homeland and the strength of her own spirit, she knew that her story had only just begun. Life in the Apache village continued with the rhythm of the seasons, and the young woman moved through it with the same quiet strength and determination she had always shown. She rose each morning with the sun, greeting the day with energy and curiosity. The scent of fresh earth, wildflowers, and the nearby river filled the air, reminding her that every day was a chance to learn something new, to explore the land she loved, and to grow stronger in mind and body. While the other young women in the village often focused on preparing for marriage or assisting in domestic tasks alone, she balanced her time between learning essential survival skills and helping her family and community thrive. Hunting and tracking were central parts of her daily life. From a young age, she had learned to move silently through the forests, to notice subtle signs of animals passing, and to recognize the unique sounds of birds and insects. She would follow footprints in the soft earth, watch for the glint of an animal's eyes at dusk, and wait patiently for hours if necessary, her body perfectly still, her breath measured and quiet. This skill earned her respect from the warriors, who often invited her to accompany them on hunting trips. While some were skeptical at first, they quickly realized that she had a talent unmatched by many, and they began to rely on her instincts in ways they had not expected. But hunting was not the only way she showed her independence. She was skilled with a bow and arrow, careful and precise, and could shoot with accuracy even from a moving horse. Horseback riding was another talent that set her apart. She moved with her horse as if they were one being, understanding its moods, energy, and rhythm. The warriors often watched in awe as she navigated the rocky terrain, leaping over streams and galloping along trails with ease. She did not seek to show off her abilities, yet the entire village knew that she was one of the most capable young women they had ever seen. Her connection to nature extended beyond survival skills. She learned from the elders about the plants and herbs that grew in the surrounding forests. Some were used for healing, others for food, and still others for ceremonial purposes. She took careful notes in her memory, remembering the colors, shapes, and smells of each plant, and practicing her skills in preparing them for use. Her knowledge often helped the village during times of sickness, as she could create remedies and treatments that eased pain and helped recovery. The elders respected her, and the younger children often followed her around, eager to learn from someone so knowledgeable and kind. Despite her busy days and her many responsibilities, she had moments of quiet reflection. Sitting by the riverbank, she would watch the water flow, listening to its gentle whispers. She thought about the future, about the kind of life she wanted, and about the qualities she sought in a companion. Unlike many young women who were content with marriage for security or status, she dreamed of someone who could match her spirit, someone who could understand her independence and respect it. She knew that this person would not come easily, but she believed in the possibility of meeting someone who could truly connect with her heart and mind. Her interactions with the other members of the village were full of warmth and respect. She helped the elders with tasks that required skill and patience, assisted mothers in teaching younger children, and shared knowledge with her peers about survival, tracking, and the land. The villagers admired her not just for her abilities, but for her kindness and her willingness to help others without seeking recognition. She was never boastful, never demanding, and never unkind. This combination of strength and humility made her both admired and respected throughout the community. Still, the constant arrival of suitors reminded her that her choices were different from those around her. Young warriors continued to approach her, offering gifts, speaking of their bravery, and trying to prove their worth. Many were from nearby tribes, traveling long distances just to seek her attention. Some were bold and confident, others shy and hesitant, but all were met with the same polite refusal. She listened carefully to their words, observed their actions, and then made a quiet decision. Her heart could not be swayed by wealth, appearance, or tales of strength. She sought something deeper, something rare, a true connection that could not be forced or demanded. The young woman's steadfastness began to inspire others. Girls in the village looked up to her, learning that it was possible to be independent and strong while still being kind and connected to the community. Boys and young men began to see that true respect was more valuable than physical strength or outward charm. Her actions taught lessons without words, showing that a person's character and heart were more important than any display of skill or wealth. Even the elders, who had lived many years and seen many changes, found wisdom in the way she carried herself, understanding that she represented the future in many ways. Daily life also included participation in cultural and ceremonial events. She joined in dances, listened attentively to stories of their ancestors, and took part in rituals that honored the land, the spirits, and the history of her people. She found joy in these traditions, seeing them not just as duty, but as a way to connect with her past and understand her place in the world. Her presence was always marked by sincerity, whether she was dancing under the full moon, helping prepare ceremonial meals, or assisting in rituals that required knowledge and precision. She learned that strength was not only in the body, but in understanding, respect, and participation in the life of the community. Despite her independence, she sometimes felt a quiet longing. There were moments, particularly in the evenings when the sun dipped low and the sky was painted with golden light, when she wondered about the person she had not yet met. She dreamed of someone who would not only admire her strength but also inspire her to grow in new ways. She imagined long conversations, shared laughter, and mutual respect. Though she had refused over 100 warriors, she held hope in her heart that the right person would appear, someone who could walk beside her as an equal, someone who would understand the depth of her spirit. One afternoon, as she gathered herbs near the edge of the forest, she noticed travelers passing through the distance. She paid attention, as she often did, noting the way they moved, the way they treated the land, and the care they showed for the animals they carried or followed. It was in these quiet observations that she sometimes felt a spark of curiosity, a hint that the world beyond her village might hold experiences and people unlike any she had encountered before. Though she did not know it yet, this curiosity would soon lead her to someone who would change her life in ways she could never imagine. As the days passed, she continued her routine with the same energy, grace, and determination that had always defined her. She ran, hunted, rode, and learned with a focus that was both disciplined and joyful. Her heart remained open to the possibility of love, but she was patient, knowing that it would arrive in its own time. Her community continued to admire her, both for her abilities and her unwavering spirit. And through it all, she remained true to herself, never compromising her independence, never pretending to be someone she was not, and always moving forward with courage and clarity. The young Apache woman's life was a balance of strength and reflection, work and play, community and solitude. She was a living example of independence, kindness, and courage, embodying the best qualities of her people while also seeking something beyond what the world had offered so far. She believed in the power of patience, the importance of self-respect, and the possibility of finding someone who could truly share her life. And though she had turned away over 100 warriors, she carried hope in her heart, a quiet, steady hope that one day someone would arrive who could match her spirit, understand her mind, and connect with her heart in a way that no one else had. Every evening, as the sun dipped behind the distant mountains and the sky was set ablaze with reds and purples, she would stand on a hilltop or by the river, looking out over the land she loved. She breathed deeply, feeling the wind on her face, listening to the rustle of the trees and the soft murmur of the water. In those moments, she felt connected to something larger than herself, a world full of possibility and wonder. She knew her journey was only beginning, that her life held challenges, surprises, and joys yet to come. And she was ready, with strength, courage, and hope, to meet whatever lay ahead. Life in the Apache village continued its quiet rhythm, with the young woman moving through her days as she always had, strong, independent, and full of curiosity. She hunted, tended to the land, helped her elders, and spent her quiet moments by the river or under the shade of the tall trees, thinking about the future and the possibilities it might bring. But one day, a change arrived that would soon turn her world upside down, though she did not yet realize it. News of travelers had spread across the nearby lands. These travelers were not like the usual merchants or messengers who occasionally passed through. They were ranchers, moving cattle along the plains, bringing news of life beyond the mountains, of distant lands, and of work that was unfamiliar yet fascinating. Among them was a young cattle rancher, whose reputation had already begun to reach the ears of the villages nearby. He was said to be hardworking, kind, and respectful, someone who treated both people and animals with care. While the villagers had heard whispers of his arrival, no one could have predicted the impact he would have on the young Apache woman's heart. The first time she saw him, it was from a distance. She was riding along the edge of the forest, observing the cattle being guided across the plains. The sight of him was different from anything she had seen before. Unlike the warriors who had tried to impress her with displays of strength or daring, he moved with quiet confidence. He guided the cattle with patience, spoke gently to the animals, and treated the men working with him as equals. There was no boastfulness in him, no need to prove himself. Instead, he worked with a sense of calm determination that immediately drew her attention. Curiosity sparked in her heart. She wanted to watch him more closely, to understand this man who seemed so different from the hundreds of warriors she had turned away. She observed how he handled challenges, how he guided the cattle through rough terrain, and how he interacted with his team. There was a natural ease about him, a sense of respect for the land and the creatures on it. The young woman could not explain why, but she felt a connection forming even from this distance. Her heart, which had been patient and cautious for so many years, stirred in a way it never had before. Days passed, and she continued to observe him whenever she could. She watched as he repaired fences, tended to the weaker cattle, and managed tasks that required skill and attention. His hands were strong, yet gentle. His voice, when he spoke to others, carried authority without arrogance. The way he moved across the land, guiding the cattle and respecting the environment, fascinated her. For the first time in her life, she felt a spark of excitement and anticipation that went beyond curiosity, something that hinted at admiration, respect, and perhaps even something deeper. One afternoon, her chance came. She was walking along a small trail leading to the river when she unexpectedly encountered him. He was repairing a broken cartwheel, and as she approached, he looked up, meeting her gaze. There was a moment of surprise on both sides. His eyes widened slightly, and she felt her own heart beat faster. She could see his calm demeanor in person, the gentle way he held himself, and the quiet strength that radiated from him. It was different from anything she had ever experienced. She felt a strange, unexplainable pull, a sense that this man might be someone extraordinary in her life. They exchanged their first words carefully, politely, each testing the other with curiosity and respect. He introduced himself with a humble smile, speaking softly but clearly. She responded with her usual grace, observing him with attentive eyes. Conversation flowed naturally, unlike the rehearsed speeches of the warriors who had tried to win her before. He asked about her people, the land, and the challenges she faced in daily life. He listened carefully, genuinely interested in her answers. There was no rush, no pressure, only a calm understanding that began to form between them. As the days passed, their encounters became more frequent. Sometimes she would see him at the trading post, other times along the river or in the fields. Each meeting revealed more about him: his patience, his respect for the world around him, and his kindness toward both people and animals. He never tried to impress her with stories of bravery or achievements. Instead, he shared lessons learned from hard work, moments of struggle, and the satisfaction of earning success through effort and honesty. This approach was unlike anything she had experienced with the hundreds of warriors she had rejected. The young woman found herself thinking about him constantly. She reflected on his actions, his words, and the quiet strength that defined him. There was something about the way he moved through the world, something humble yet powerful, that captured her heart. Unlike previous suitors, he did not demand attention or approval. He did not try to control or impress. He simply existed with honesty and integrity, qualities she deeply valued. Her curiosity grew into admiration, and admiration slowly began to transform into something far more profound, a recognition of a soul that could match her own. Her friends noticed a change in her demeanor. She seemed lighter, more thoughtful, and sometimes distracted, as if her mind wandered to distant places. They asked questions, teasing her gently about a new interest, but she would smile mysteriously and say nothing. Even her family sensed a shift. Her mother, wise and observant, noticed the subtle glow in her daughter's eyes and the occasional soft smile when she thought no one was watching. Her father, too, sensed the change, though he understood little of its cause. Still, he could see that something new, exciting, and transformative was taking root in her life. The young woman began to observe not just his actions, but also the way he made others feel. She noticed how the people around him respected him without fear, how the workers on the ranch felt valued and trusted. He treated everyone equally, whether they were elders, children, or animals. This equality, this respect for life in all its forms, was rare and precious. It resonated deeply with her own values, and she found herself drawn not just to his presence, but to the way he lived with integrity, courage, and humility. One evening, as the sun dipped low and the sky turned shades of orange and pink, they met at the riverbank by chance. She had been collecting herbs and had paused to watch the reflection of the sunset on the water. He arrived quietly, tending to a small task by the river, and their eyes met once again. This time, words were unnecessary. In that shared silence, a connection formed, something that went beyond curiosity or admiration. It was a quiet understanding, a recognition that their spirits resonated with each other. The young woman felt a warmth in her chest, a realization that this man was unlike anyone she had ever met. For the first time in her life, she felt a spark of certainty. She had turned away over 100 warriors, but here was someone who commanded her attention not with displays of strength, but with authenticity. There was no boasting, no arrogance, no attempt to sway her heart with gifts or stories. He simply existed, honest and steady, and in his presence she felt a sense of belonging she had never known. Her heart, which had been patient for so many years, whispered quietly that perhaps, at last, she had found someone worthy of it. As they continued to meet, their conversations deepened. She learned about his life as a cattle rancher, the challenges he faced, and the lessons he had learned along the way. He listened to her stories of the Apache lands, their traditions, and her experiences with respect and fascination. Every interaction strengthened the bond between them, and the young woman began to realize that admiration was turning into something stronger, something that might become love, built not on appearances or status, but on mutual respect, understanding, and shared values. In one quiet moment, as the stars began to appear in the night sky, she whispered to herself, almost as if speaking to the universe itself, "You're mine." It was not a declaration of possession, but a recognition of something rare and beautiful, a connection that could not be forced, only discovered. For the first time, her heart felt both calm and alive, certain that the man she had been observing, admiring, and slowly connecting with was unlike anyone she had ever known. And so, life began to change in subtle but profound ways. The young Apache woman continued her daily routines, still strong, independent, and engaged with her community. But now, there was a quiet anticipation in her heart, a sense of excitement that grew with each passing day. She had met someone who respected her, admired her spirit, and offered a partnership based on equality and understanding. In his presence, she felt a spark of joy and hope that she had longed for but never dared to imagine. After the initial meetings and quiet observations, the young Apache woman found herself drawn to the cattle rancher in ways she had never experienced before. At first, it was curiosity that held her attention, a curiosity about the man who moved through the world with such quiet strength, who treated everyone with respect, and who seemed completely at ease in his own skin. But as the days passed, this curiosity transformed into admiration, and admiration slowly grew into a deeper connection, something neither of them could fully explain yet. Their encounters became more frequent, though never forced or planned. Sometimes they met while gathering water at the river, other times at the trading post where villagers exchanged goods. There were also moments when their paths crossed, while she roamed the fields or hills near her village, her eyes drawn to the distant figure of the rancher tending to his cattle. Each meeting felt natural, like a small current pulling them closer together, yet neither rushed to define what was unfolding between them. The young woman began to notice the small things about him, The way he smiled when he solved a problem, the gentle tone in his voice when speaking to someone in need, and the care with which he handled the animals on his ranch. He never boasted about his skills or tried to impress anyone. Instead, he quietly showed his abilities through action. This humility, combined with competence, left a lasting impression on her. It was a stark contrast to the warriors she had met in the past, who often sought recognition through daring feats or loud proclamations of bravery. One afternoon, she found herself walking through a meadow where the rancher was guiding a herd of cattle. He noticed her from a distance and waved, his smile warm and inviting. She approached cautiously, as she always did, but with a growing sense of comfort in his presence. They walked together along the edge of the field, sharing observations about the land and the animals. Their conversation was easy and unforced, flowing naturally without the need for embellishment. She spoke of the trails she knew, the plants that grew in the wild, and the techniques she had learned for tracking and survival. He listened attentively, asking questions with genuine interest, and occasionally sharing his own experiences from life on the ranch. As the days turned into weeks, a pattern began to emerge. Each encounter deepened their understanding of one another. She noticed his patience, not just with her but with everyone around him. When the men assisting him made mistakes, he corrected them gently, never raising his voice in anger. When animals became unruly or frightened, he approached them with calm authority, guiding them rather than forcing them. This ability to act with both strength and kindness fascinated her. She began to realize that true strength did not always come from force or display. It came from understanding, patience, and respect for the world around you. The young woman also began to reflect on her own heart. She had spent many years carefully guarding it, turning away suitors who could not meet her standards or understand her need for independence. Yet now, she found herself thinking about this man constantly. Her thoughts were not consumed by fleeting attraction or superficial admiration. They were filled with genuine curiosity, respect, and a quiet longing to know him more deeply. She felt a sense of anticipation she had never known before, a readiness for connection without fear of losing herself. One evening, as the sun dipped low behind the mountains and the sky glowed with soft shades of orange and pink, they found themselves sitting by the river together. She had brought some herbs she had collected, while he tended to the water to give it to the animals later. They shared a moment of quiet companionship, the sound of the flowing river filling the space between them. For a long time, neither spoke, but both felt the connection deepening with each passing minute. Words were unnecessary, the presence of each other was enough. Eventually, the young woman broke the silence, asking him about his experiences on the ranch, the challenges he faced, and the lessons he had learned along the way. He answered thoughtfully, sharing stories of hard work, determination, and moments of quiet triumph. He spoke not to impress her, but to reveal who he was: honest, grounded, and unpretentious. She listened intently, fascinated by his perspective, and found herself opening up about her own life, her experiences in the village, and her love for the land. This exchange of stories, mutual and respectful, allowed them to connect on a level deeper than words alone could express. As they spoke, the young woman realized that she had never met anyone who made her feel so understood. The warriors she had rejected had all tried to impress her with skill or status, but none had ever truly listened to her, respected her perspective, or treated her as an equal. With the cattle rancher, there was no pretense, no need for grand gestures. There was simply honesty, patience, and a mutual respect that allowed trust to grow naturally. She felt her heart begin to open, cautiously but eagerly, to the possibility of something extraordinary. The young woman's admiration soon turned into a quiet, steady affection. She noticed herself smiling more often when he was near, feeling warmth in her chest at the sound of his voice or the sight of his gentle mannerisms. She found joy in their shared moments, whether they were working together, walking across the plains, or simply sitting in companionable silence. There was no rush, no expectation, only a gradual, mutual recognition that something meaningful was taking root between them. Her friends and family began to notice subtle changes as well. She seemed lighter in spirit, her laughter more frequent, and her demeanor more relaxed. The elders observed with quiet approval, recognizing the wisdom in allowing connections to develop naturally rather than forcing them. Even her mother, who had long admired her daughter's independence, could see that this young man had touched her heart in a unique way. Yet the young woman remained careful, honoring her own feelings while allowing the bond to deepen at its own pace. The bond between them was strengthened by shared experiences. She began to accompany him occasionally on tasks related to the ranch, learning new skills while teaching him about the land and its rhythms. They worked side by side, often laughing at small mistakes and celebrating successes together. These moments of collaboration created a foundation of mutual respect and trust, solidifying the connection that had first sparked in her heart from afar. She realized that this was a partnership built not on control or expectation, but on shared effort, understanding, and admiration. One quiet night, as they sat beneath a sky full of stars, the young woman felt a wave of certainty wash over her. She looked at him, observing the calm confidence in his eyes and the sincerity in his smile. Her heart whispered a truth she could no longer ignore. This man was unlike anyone she had ever known. For the first time, she felt a bond that was not based on pride, status, or appearance, but on something far deeper, an understanding of character, values, and shared spirit. The words formed almost naturally on her lips, though she whispered them softly to herself. "You're mine." It was not a declaration of possession, but a recognition of a connection she had long awaited, a connection rooted in respect, admiration, and quiet love. From that moment on, their relationship blossomed in small, meaningful ways. They continued to spend time together, learning from one another, supporting one another, and enjoying the simple joys of life in the village and on the land. She found comfort in his presence, excitement in his stories, and inspiration in his approach to life. He, in turn, admired her strength, independence, and wisdom, finding in her a partner who challenged him, supported him, and shared his values. Their growing bond did not go unnoticed. The villagers began to see a change in the young woman's demeanor, a new light in her eyes, and a quiet confidence in her interactions. The warriors who had once sought her attention with displays of strength or skill were surprised to see her affection directed towards someone who valued humility, honesty, and respect above all else. Yet the young woman remained steadfast, following the guidance of her heart rather than the expectations of others. Through each encounter, each shared experience, and each quiet moment beneath the sky, the connection between the young Apache woman and the cattle rancher deepened. It was a bond built on patience, understanding, and mutual admiration, growing steadily and naturally, unforced by circumstance or expectation. In his presence, she felt safe, understood, and inspired, a rare combination that had never existed in her life before. And as the stars shone overhead, she knew with certainty that this bond was something extraordinary, something worth nurturing with care, respect, and love. Life continued to flow naturally in the Apache village, but for the young woman, nothing would ever be quite the same again. The quiet admiration she had felt for the cattle rancher had transformed into something far deeper, and their connection had grown into a bond that touched the hearts of everyone around them. Their companionship was built on understanding, respect, and shared values, and it soon became clear that their partnership was something extraordinary, something worth nurturing for a lifetime. At first, their relationship was marked by simple moments of joy. They spent their days working together, whether tending to the land, guiding cattle, or exploring the hills and forests surrounding the village. She shared her knowledge of plants, herbs, and survival skills, teaching him how to read the land, track animals, and move quietly through the wilderness. In return, he showed her techniques for managing the ranch, caring for livestock, and working with tools and equipment that were new to her. Through these exchanges, they not only learned from each other but also grew closer, their respect for one another deepening with every shared task. The villagers began to notice the changes in the young woman. She was still the strong, independent person she had always been, but there was now a calm happiness in her eyes and a lightness in her step. She laughed more freely, smiled more often, and carried herself with a sense of contentment that had not been there before. The cattle rancher's presence did not diminish her independence, rather, it complemented it. He admired her strength, her intelligence, and her courage, and he treated her as an equal, never trying to control her or dictate her actions. In turn, she respected his hard work, honesty, and gentle heart, recognizing in him a partner who could share life as an equal rather than a rival. As seasons changed, so did their bond. They faced challenges together, from unexpected storms that threatened the cattle to difficult tasks in the fields and forests. Whenever obstacles arose, they approached them as a team, combining their skills and knowledge to find solutions. The young woman's instincts and survival expertise were invaluable, while the cattle rancher's patience, determination, and practical knowledge helped guide them through even the toughest situations. Through these shared experiences, their connection grew stronger, rooted not just in admiration but in trust, reliance, and mutual support. One spring morning, as the sun rose over the mountains, they worked side by side in the fields. The young woman noticed the way his hands moved skillfully, tending to the plants and animals with care and precision. She felt a deep sense of appreciation for his dedication and thoughtfulness. He, in turn, watched her with quiet admiration, noticing her strength, grace, and confidence in handling tasks that required skill and courage. Neither needed to speak their feelings aloud. Each understood the other's heart through actions, presence, and shared moments of quiet connection. Despite the deepening bond, the young woman remained true to herself. She never let her feelings overshadow her independence or the life she had built for herself within the village. She continued to participate in ceremonies, assist elders, and teach younger children about the land, plants, and survival skills. Her life was still full of purpose, and her love for the cattle rancher did not diminish her dedication to her people or the traditions she cherished. Instead, it added a new layer of meaning to her existence, bringing joy, warmth, and companionship to the days that might otherwise have been solitary. As the months passed, their relationship became a source of inspiration for those around them. Other young women in the village looked up to the young Apache woman, seeing that it was possible to remain independent and strong while also embracing love and partnership. Young men observed the cattle rancher's respectful behavior and learned that true connection was built on kindness, humility, and integrity rather than display of strength or wealth. The elders who had watched over the village for decades saw wisdom in the union, recognizing that it was a relationship grounded in mutual respect and shared values, a model for future generations. The young woman and the cattle rancher also began to share more personal moments, learning about each other's dreams, fears, and past experiences. She spoke of her childhood, her family, and the lessons she had learned from her people and the land. He shared stories of life on the ranch, the challenges he had faced, and the values that guided him in work and in life. Through these conversations, they discovered common ground and complementary strengths, forming a partnership that was both balanced and deeply connected. Each conversation strengthened their bond, allowing them to understand not just each other's actions but the hearts and minds behind them. One evening, under a sky full of stars, they sat together by the river, reflecting on how far their relationship had come. The young woman realized that she had found in him someone who could be her equal, someone who respected her independence, while also offering companionship and support. The cattle rancher, in turn, recognized the extraordinary qualities in her, a mind as sharp as her courage, a heart as strong as her spirit, and a soul deeply connected to the land and its people. In that quiet moment, they both understood that they had found something rare and enduring, a love built on respect, trust, and shared life. Their bond was soon tested in ways that strengthened it further. During a particularly harsh storm, the cattle were in danger, and both worked tirelessly to protect them. She relied on her knowledge of the terrain to guide them through flooded areas, while he used his experience with livestock to calm the animals and prevent panic. Together, they navigated the challenges with skill and teamwork, their partnership proving its strength in action. When the storm finally passed, they stood together, exhausted but victorious, and their shared triumph deepened the connection that had begun months earlier with curiosity and quiet admiration. As time went on, the young woman introduced the cattle rancher more formally to her family and the wider village. He was welcomed warmly, his respect for the people and traditions of the Apache community evident in every interaction. He listened to the elders' stories, helped in daily tasks, and learned about the culture and values that shaped the community. The young woman watched with pride as he integrated himself with humility and sincerity, earning the trust and admiration of those who had long been skeptical of outsiders. Their love became a story told among the villagers, a tale of patience, understanding, and partnership. It was a story that inspired others, showing that love did not have to mean sacrifice of independence, that strength could coexist with kindness, and that respect and admiration were the foundations of lasting connection. Even those who had once questioned her choices could see that this relationship was different, that it was built on equality and mutual support rather than superficial qualities or fleeting charm. Eventually, the young woman and the cattle rancher began to build a life together, combining their knowledge, skills, and values to create a harmonious existence. They shared responsibilities, balanced work and rest, and continued to learn from one another. She taught him more about the land, the plants, and the traditions of her people, while he shared practical skills and knowledge of ranching and survival in new ways. Their partnership was not just romantic but practical, blending strengths and compensating for weaknesses, ensuring that they thrived together as a team. Through it all, the young woman remained a symbol of independence and courage. Her bond with the cattle rancher did not diminish her identity. Rather, it complemented it, allowing her to grow in new ways. She discovered that love did not mean losing herself, that partnership did not require surrender, and that true connection was built on mutual respect, shared goals, and understanding. She had waited patiently, turned away over 100 suitors, and now found in him a companion who valued her for who she truly was. Years passed, and their life together flourished. They faced challenges, celebrated successes, and experienced moments of quiet joy and shared laughter. Their love was steady, resilient, and enduring, built not on external appearances or fleeting passion, but on trust, respect, and admiration. The young woman who had once rejected so many warriors found fulfillment and happiness in a partnership that honored both her independence and her heart. The cattle rancher, in turn, discovered in her a partner, friend, and equal, someone who inspired him to be his best self every day. In the end, their story became more than just a love story. It was a lesson for all who knew them. It was a reminder that patience, understanding, and respect were the foundations of true connection, that love did not require sacrifice of one's identity, and that the most meaningful relationships were built on shared values, trust, and admiration. The young Apache woman and the cattle rancher lived as partners, friends, and equals, proving that the right connection could transform life in the most beautiful and lasting ways. And so, under the wide skies and among the rolling plains, their life together continued, full of adventure, respect, and quiet joy. She, who had once turned away over 100 warriors, had finally found someone whose spirit matched her own. He, who had journeyed across the land with patience and humility, had found a partner who challenged him, supported him, and shared his heart. Together, they wrote a story of love, courage, and unity, a story that would be remembered for generations, a testament to the power of patience, understanding, and the extraordinary bond that forms when two hearts meet as equals.